This is the biggest duck in UFC history. How more clearly can you say it? At this point, after Jon Jones' most recent interview and his comments regarding Tom Aspinall and his future after this Stipe Miocic fight, it is truly the biggest swerve, duck, avoidance, however you want to say it, I've personally seen in MMA history. It's one thing to pass over a top contender, choose a so-called legacy fight, as a top contender. But Tom Aspinall holds the interim heavyweight championship and has been defending it in Jon Jones' absence. There couldn't be a clearer number one contender in any weight class in the UFC. He literally has a belt. Jon Jones has talked about after the Stipe Miocic fight, potentially hanging them up, or fighting someone like Alex Poatan Pereira. Yes, objectively, that fight could be bigger for his legacy, but how could that not be viewed as cherry-picking your opponent to choose the smaller guy? Yes, Jones and Pereira are roughly the same size, but Pereira versus Aspinall is huge compared. Aspinall is exciting, young, hungry, undefeated, the clear best guy in that division. And for Jon Jones to discredit his legacy, to discredit everything he's done in the UFC, and to call him pretty much a nobody is absolutely ridiculous. I wonder if this is Jones in a bit of a marketing play. That isn't off the table yet, but come on. Really, I think if you read between the lines here, Jones has not wanted to add any fuel to the fire in terms of promoting and the fight with Tom Aspinall. It's clear this guy does not want to fight Aspinall. Obviously, Jon Jones, objectively is viewed as the greatest mixed martial artist of all time. Regardless of his stuff outside of the octagon, in his personal life, if you just take the talent and the body of work that he's provided in the UFC, it's nuts. But that's not Jon Jones anymore. This now is someone who's trying to protect a legacy, to make sure no one makes a name off of him, like he said. At the end of his light heavyweight run, fighting guys like Dominic Reyes, Thiago Santos, those fights were a lot closer than any Jon Jones fight has ever looked. And I think that was a bit of a wake-up call for him, Obviously, the Gustafsson fight back in the day was pretty close, but the guy didn't train at all for that fight. Dominic Reyes objectively got robbed in that fight. It's a pretty clear 3-2 Reyes on rewatch. And look what happened to Dominic Reyes' career after that. Sort of imploded on itself. Jon Jones still at the top. He is your heavyweight champion. And finally, we get to see this matchup with Stipe come to a close. Could you imagine if Stipe spoils the party? If Stipe goes in there and beats Jon Jones, it would throw everything on its head. Poor Tom Aspinall, because they're doing the rematch if that happens. Like I said, it's been clear Jon Jones does not want to fight Tom Aspinall, does not want to fight Sergey Pavlovich at the time. Any of these young, hungry, up-and-coming talents. Obviously, he beat Ciryl Gane, but that wasn't a fight. Ciryl Gane completely gave up and just shit the bed. The pressure of that moment really got to him and got in the way of him really letting anything out there. Ciryl Gane did not look like himself at all in that fight, and Jon Jones ran through him. Still, so many unanswered questions about Jon Jones at heavyweight. And even though Stipe Miocic has not fought in 4 years or something, and he's 42 or 41 or something like that, the age, the time off, all of these things are going against Stipe Miocic. But the guy in his prime, even towards the later prime of his career, this trilogy with DC, Stipe Miocic is very skilled. Not only skilled, but his will is pretty unbreakable. Unless you go out there like Ngannou and just shut his lights off, you're going to have a hard time breaking Stipe Miocic's will. Look what he did in the second DC fight. Digging down to that body. It was down a couple rounds. It comes to the fourth, switches up the game plan in one of the best mid-fight adjustments I've ever seen. Stipe Miocic, if he can get it done this weekend, wow. Like I said, that would throw everything on its head, and I'm all here for it. Let's go, Stipe. John Jones has won no new fans. He's been talking so delusionally about this matchup, giving the fans the fights they want to see, and quote, come on, man. Absolutely delusional at this stage. I think if the UFC promoted a fight with him and Tom Aspinall, it would be massive. Absolutely massive. I have a sneaking suspicion Tom Aspinall is going to come to MSG New York this week and make his presence known. I would absolutely love that. Get him in at the press conference or something. Ask John Jones a question. You and me, buddy, when's it going to be? Like I said, this is, how can you say otherwise, the biggest duck in UFC history. Ducking the clearest number one contender in the whole UFC, regardless of weight classes, someone who has a belt in your division, to go to the former middleweight champion. What do you say about that? And it's so interesting how the UFC and these belts, when they want them to mean something, they really do. But in a situation like this, they go, oh, forget about that. You know, this means nothing. So to get people to care again, you can't just keep going back and forth like this. There needs to be some more meritocracy, some more rankings, and a clearer path to the top, to the belt, you know. In this case, like Tom Aspinall, what more does he have to do? What more does he have to do? But that's the UFC at the end of the day. It's just as much as a business for entertainment purposes. And these guys know that. And unfortunately, that's what they're signing up for. If they want the biggest place to fight MMA in the world, in the Ultimate Fighting Championship, unfortunately, that's the sort of politics that you just have to deal with, because where else are you going to go? A true monopoly the UFC has, but that's a conversation for another day. John Jones, please, my bro, fight Tommy Aspinall. And who knows, like that fight could be really competitive. I think John Jones could probably do well in that fight. Tom Aspinall, another guy who has a lot of questions about sort of when the fight goes further than the first round. So it's not like John Jones is walking into an unwinnable fight. I think the mentality of him wanting to protect his record like this is, making him lose a lot of fans and a bad taste in their mouth for this Stipe matchup. And for it to be delayed a whole year like this is truly rough. Tom Aspinall has been doing everything he's been asked, stepping in on short notice, now defending his interim belt. The guy cannot catch a break. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Please let me know what you think. Hopefully some of this gets resolved this weekend at UFC 309 at MSG. If you could like, comment, and subscribe, I would really appreciate that, and we will chat soon.